the gold.
It could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Darren Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, Canada and the rest of the world, you're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo, recording in St. Catharines, Ontario currently.
And I'm Danie Proby from Vancouver, BC, and we are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. Okay, so if you've been a devout follower of our podcast over the last couple of years, you've gotten used to a certain tier, echelon, if you would say, of Theo's voice quality. Theo, can you tell us where you are?
Yeah, I'm recording out of an iPhone mic, whispering in a house of college students. So I am living the vagabond lifestyle right now, moving from place to place.
Yes, a bit transient. So if the audio sounds a little bit different, it's because we are making it work, people. He was actually going to record this in his car, so we're one step above that. But yeah, lots to get through today. Do you have any updates for the people before we head into the news?
No, I'm just busy with the new job, which one day I'll share. That's pretty much it. What about you?
I mean, obviously there was tryouts this last weekend, which is pretty fun. And today I was TOCing at a school that, well, the school just won provincials for Ultimate last year. And I was teaching exclusively grade 8s and 9s today. And guess what I taught all day? Ultimate Frisbee. And I hated every second of it. So It's funny. It's just like after coaching like UBC and Team Canada, it's so hard to go back to kids that are like, do we have to? I'm like, I know you will like this. Suck it up. So, and they do.
Injuries.
They do end up liking
injuries
it.
And sickness.
But this is how you hold a forehand. I'm just too old for this crap, Theo. But anyway, we're going to head to the news because we're going to talk a little bit about the West Coast tryout. We also have some North Central recaps for USAUs. We've got University Series recaps, and we kind of got a USA Nationals Club pools kind of overview. We haven't done like the actual pools and the seedings and the brackets and the predictions or anything like that. It's just kind of like a little taster, if you will. So we're going to take a quick break and head to the news.
We now have breaking news.
All right, everybody, welcome to the news. We are going to be doing the North Central recap. So we had General Strike participating this weekend. It was kind of our last-ditch hope to beat the amount of teams that we had last year going to nationals. And so everything was kind of riding on this. And I think a lot of people had a lot of faith in this. And so we'll break down the action here. So General Strike went through their pool play. They beat Bucks 15-10. They beat Nomad 15-4. And they beat Demo 13-8. So cruising through pool play, sought them up like to play Sub-Zero, which historically would be a really tough quarterfinal. But Sub-Zero has been kind of subpar this year. But this was not the case that day. So unfortunately, General Strike ended up losing to Sub-Zero by 2, but I did hear at one point they were down 4-10. So they did make a massive comeback, which is great, but it was a little bit too little too late. So their hopes and dreams to be nationals bound were kind of quashed at that moment, but they were not done fighting. So they ended up winning the next games 15-8 and 14-8. And this was over number 1 seed St. Louis Lunar to finish 5th overall. So they were able to go into select fight, which is important. We know that getting into these bigger and better tournaments is important for development. It's important for rankings and everything. But alas, still 4 teams going. The only thing is that GOAT is exchanged for Furious. And we have 3 teams out of the 4 being represented from Ya Girls Hood, Vancouver. So we gotta love that a lot. Speaking of loving a lot, I know, actually, maybe this was a little controversial with the Ulti-World people, but USA Nationals, instead of doing the regular seeding and pools draw that they normally do, they decided to do it the World Cup style, sort of like how we did it. Not exactly like how we did it for CUCs. Do you think that they copied us, Theo?
I think they saw what we did and they realized it was sick.
Yeah, well, not everybody thinks it's sick. Some people think that it made for some unfortunate pools and it doesn't reward the teams that play super well, like the top seeds, for example. People think that it is actually a big detriment to those teams potentially who do well all season and hold a high ranking. They could end up getting a really tough pool, which we'll kind of see in some of these pools a little bit later. So we're going to start with the open division. So Furious ended up drawing, they were in like the third pot, so they were going to be a 3 seed, and they ended up being drawn into Pool D. A little birdie did tell me that they're excited about this pool, and they think that this is the type of pool that they think they actually have a chance of winning. So there you go. Chain is the number 1 seed. They look solid, but they are definitely not the most scary number 1 seed. So I think Furious is quite lucky to be the 3 seed in this pool specifically. They have losses this season to Rhino, Goat, Sockeye, all at TCT West, and Dig by 1 at Elite Select Challenge. They've also lost to Revolver, Truck Stop at Pro Champs, and Ring and Fire at Regionals. So a kind of like susceptible number 1 seed. They do have wins over Revolver by 1, Machine by 2, Bravo by 1, and Pony by 1. So volatile is kind of how I would describe them. Now, the number 2 seed overall is Machine. They're a little bit more checkered with their wins and losses, and they have notable losses to Ring and to Pony, which were tight, in fact, but still losses. And then they also lost to Truck and Double Wide. Their wins were mostly regional levels, but they did have a 1-point win over Rhino and a 5-point win over Ring. Now, coming into the number 4 seed, everybody's favorite, Blueprint, which is the big surprise. I mean, Darkstar was sort of a surprise, but I feel like people always think the Darkstar could be the type of team that would upset, but I had never heard of Blueprint. So the fact that they were able to make it is pretty incredible. Their notable losses, they have lost to Mallard, Sprout, Dig, like non-nationals level teams this season. And their notable wins, I guess, would be, their best win was probably against Phoenix this season. And then Sprout. So the only player I really know on their team is Jacob Cowan because he was on the U24 mixed team and he was the Donovan nominee. But hard to scout a team like Blueprint. But good luck to Furious in their plight. Theo, from your perspective, if you had to bet right now, where do you think Furious is going to end up in this pool?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't see them finishing last. I could see them finishing first, but I could also see them holding their seed. Machine has kind of been up and down. I commentated one of their games and they were pretty good until the end when they lost to, I think it was Pony. They played a pretty clean game against them. So they have it in them, but their season results haven't really shown that. I'm surprised you don't know Pat Stagamiller. Come on.
I mean, I've heard the name.
Yeah. He's the man, the myth, legend. But I was very stoked for Pat and Blueprint making it, but I don't see them making that much noise at Nationals.
Speaking of noise, we're going to head to the mixed division. Noise is a team in the mixed division if you don't know. Otherwise, that segue will not make any sense to you. So Red Flag ended up being in the kind of the 3rd seed pot. And so they ended up being drawn into Pool B. So they got Dragon Thrust, Exist, and Mischief. Dragon Thrust is the number 1 seed. It honestly could be a worse number 1 seed because Dragon Thrust kind of a bit of a slow start. They had 4 losses and 2 wins only at the US Open. They lost to Shame, Ellipsis, BFG, and how do you say this team again? Voltage? Voltage? Yeah, sure. Something like that. And yeah, so even though they did have a slow start, they've kind of been rising, and they won over BFG by 1, and then later at Pro Champs, they won against them by 6. And then they won, as I said earlier, a big win at regionals over Noise. So if you're Red Flag, I feel like this isn't an unwinnable game. So that's an exciting thing for them heading into nationals, to feel like the number 1 seed is fallible. And now the number 2 seed is Exist. Seems like a pretty tough 2 seed. Like, I think that them and Dragon seem sort of similar based on their records. Their notable wins are over Mixtape twice at the US Open, and they had a 1-point loss to BFG. They lost to Slow and Sprocket as well. But they have wins over Dragon, Thrust earlier in the season, Toro, and Hybrid. Now, Mischief is the bottom seed. The James Carpree is joining them for the postseason, ladies and gentlemen. So the U24 mixed team stud, Union star, is now going to be playing with Mischief. So they have wins over Lawless, Polar Bears, and Crocs this season, and their notable losses are to Space Force twice and to BFG twice. So I think that them as a number 4 seed, it's not a cakewalk. I think they're pretty dangerous. So if you are Flag, what do you think is your scariest game here, Theo?
I think it's actually Exist.
Yeah.
Exist underperformed at regionals, but they're like a semis level team if they put it all together.
Yeah,
so,
it's pretty tough.
And it sucks to have them as a 2 senior pool. Mix is very volatile, like over the years. Like teams upset, and it happens.
It does happen. I will. Do you want me to round out and finish the women's, or do you want to do it? No, I'm going to do it. Okay. So in the women's division, we have Sixers and Traffic representing the women's division. Both teams got drawn into Pool D, which is something we all kind of just said it's going to happen. Like I was talking to Carla DeFilippo on this weekend, and she's like, it's going to happen. We're going to be in the same pool. And boom, there we are in the same pool. So Sixers drawing the number 2 seed, Traffic drawing the number 3 seed. We've got Molly Brown as the 1 seed and Grit as the 4 seed. I feel like these teams, Traffic played both Sixers and Grit at Pro Champs, so it just kind of feels like a little bit of a rematch from that tournament. Molly Brown has notable wins over Traffic by 5 in Pro Elite Finals, and a convincing win over Schwa, Nightlock, and Grit, and they have close wins over Sixers, Riot, and Flipside. Their only recent losses are to Fury and Phoenix, but they did lose to Traffic way back when. I know Traffic, we've been kind of holding on to that and been like, don't you remember way back in the day we did it? So hoping to repeat history. Sixers, their losses this season are to Flipside like a pretty close loss to Flipside, a pretty big beatdown to Fury. They lost close to Molly and big to Scandal, and they lost to Bent at regionals. So I know that with the Canadian series, with tryouts, this season has been a little bit rough for both Traffic and Sixers. There's just a lot of stuff kind of going on alongside our seasons, but they have pretty comfortable wins over other teams at their regionals. They didn't get to face Brute, unfortunately. They have a big win over Traffic at Pro Champs, 14-6, but they don't have any wins over top teams this season. So I think they're going to be looking to change that. Traffic, notable wins. They were really early, though. First tournament of the season versus Flipside and Molly. There are notable losses. Every team seeded ahead of them. Phoenix, Brute, Scandal, etc. And they played Sixers tight at CUCs, even though they lost big at Pro Champs. Now, rounding out this pool, we have Grit. They lost all their games at Pro Champs, but their closest game was against Traffic, where Traffic had to get 4 breaks near the end to end up winning that game. So Grit was actually in the lead. It was quite windy, and so getting those upwind ones early on really allowed them to kind of coast out. But Traffic was able to kind of seal the deal at the end. They lost big to Scandal Regionals, but won a Universe game over Parcha. So clear number 4 seed, but not a cakewalk.
I know they account for regional diversity, but they don't count for country diversity.
No.
So that's too bad.
It's okay. I'm excited.
It's fun. It's fun. Molly's a clear top team. I think they have the moxie to win it all. So it's a good test for both Sixers and Traffic. Have to play them in pool play. See what happens.
Yeah. All right. We are moving to our main event after this quick break, but that was your news.
Hi, this is Carla DeFilippo, coach of the Toronto Sixers and co-founder of the Toronto Elites Junior Program. And you're listening to the Huckin A podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right. More from me, ladies and gentlemen. We have CWUUC, aka the best, most intense regional tournament in Canada. Just joking. Only one team was actually vying for a bid. In the women's division, we have UVic A, SFU, UBC B, UVic B, and Prime. So juniors team. The Prime team is basically any of the juniors that can play still this year. So the ones that didn't graduate last year. And it's actually not UVic A and B. It's UVic X and Y, and they haven't done tryouts yet. So it's anyone that wants to play. And UBCB is also similar. It's just kind of like anyone who wanted to play. There were a couple people, I believe, that were from our A team that were there as well. UBCB ends up winning the whole thing. They end up beating Prime by 1 at the end, and I kind of was bugging them about it last night at the UBC Open practice. I was like, what's going on here, friends? And they just said it was a tight, intense game. So there you go. UVic dropped a game to Prime, also 11-9. So I know these junior teams are coming off their season. UVic is like basically kind of using it as a tryout for a lot of their players. Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it, but congratulations to UBC B. And I guess I should talk about the Open division because people care about that too. Okay, on the Open division, there's only one team vying for an actual bid to nationals, and that is UVic A. So we have UBC, UVic A, SFU, UVic B. Now, the UVic A and B were legit A and B teams. UBC was not their actual A team. They used it as an extended tryout as well. And so that's just kind of how she blows. So UBC ends up winning 2 games and dropping 1. UVic won all 3 of their games. SFU won 1 game, lost 2, and UVic B lost all 3 of their games.
UVic A, maybe they're going to make some noise at nationals this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they beat their B team 15-6. I don't know. I guess they beat UBC.
What's on SFU?
What do you mean?
Like, any club players on SFU that we know about?
Yeah, I think there's maybe some kids from like the Richmond team there and stuff. Like there's good players at SFU. It's a really weird school to try to get a team going because you're up on a hill. It snows up there. Usually kids don't live on campus, and so it's just really hard to practice. So it just never gets off the ground. I think they could have a pretty good team though, but unfortunately they don't. Yeah, UVic A ended up beating UBC 11-8 in the final round.
Moving on to the Prairies. I was really hoping this was going to happen, and it did happen. So I was saying that with Manitoba not having all their general strike players, they might drop a game to Alberta, and they actually do twice. So in pool play, let's look at the score. They lose 15-5, and then they lose again 15-6 in the final. But unfortunately, I was rooting for Team Chaos, but Alberta declines the bid.
Ooh.
So I think they're probably still going to go Div 2 because they have gone to nationals before. But I was hoping that Manitoba would have to earn its way to the Friday qualifier, and then all the Ontario Quebec teams would get really mad. But
so Alberta might still go to Div 2?
I think so. I have to confirm that. But they have gone in the past. Also, shout out to Calgary getting a big win over Regina twice. So they finished 3rd.
Amazing. All right, moving over to the Atlantic.
Looks like I forgot to add the women's results.
See, we did the opposite. I forgot about the men and you forgot about the women. Well, I'll hit up the Atlantic while you pull up the women's results. So we have, Dalhousie I thought coming in as the favorite, ended up dropping a game. Moncton went 6-0. And then Dalhousie went 5-1. We got Mount A coming in next with 4 wins, 2 losses. So Moncton with some big dubs winning pool play, but then losing in the finals to Dalhousie eventually. Mount Allison going 4-2 is great. UPEI showing up, going 2-4. St. FX had a team, though unfortunately went winless. We love that they were there. We love that they have a Frisbee team. UNB has a point differential of exactly 0, which is fun, and they go 3-3, so they were just like neutral. I don't know if they think that's fun though.
So, and for those when we said last week that St. FX was taking a bid, they actually are not going to Div 1. So, Ontario Quebec teams, do not fear, you have a chance. Well, that's why there's 2 bids at Easterns, which we'll talk about. But on the women's side, Manitoba in Prairies goes 3-0, pretty much unchallenged. They win the final against City Regina 12-4. I think that's the School of Hard Knocks team that we were talking about.
I mean, it's unsurprising that they did as well as they did.
Yeah, Manitoba, I think, is, despite not playing these Eastern teams, I think they're the clear top team based on who I know from their club scene, all the players they have. So
yeah, it didn't seem like they graduated too many people either.
No, they definitely do not. So, we're going to go to the last regional, the biggest one of the weekend, which is Easterns. So we're just going to talk big picture stories from the pools. So in Pool A, U of T kind of cleans up, takes care of business. Pool B is where Guelph gets a revenge, or excuse me, McMaster, they're going to hate me for that. McMaster gets the revenge win on Guelph, winning 10-9, so they actually win the Pool B out there. And then in the crossovers, all the top seeds win. And then in Pool C, Waterloo gets a big upset over Brock, 11-8, but falls to McGill. So McGill wins the Pool C. And then TMU also gets an upset, beating Western 13-10. But then Ottawa takes the Pool. So when we look at crossovers, Ottawa easily beats McGill A 15-4. Waterloo moves themselves up with a win over Western, and then Brock bounces back from being upset to eliminate TMU from quarters contention. So in quarters, all the top seeds win. Goes pretty chalky. And then Toronto beats McGill, and Ottawa earns a bid to nationals by beating McMaster in the semifinals 11-8. So, and then Ottawa goes on to beat U of T. So we talked about this Ottawa team being pretty good with all their wicked players they got. They got the transfers out here too. They prove it with a 13-12 victory. McMaster gets the second spot out of Ontario, or out of Easterns, winning 11-9. So they're also going to Div 1. Queens gets fifth with a win over Guelph. So Guelph really fallen down after having a pretty good Steel Town. Western comes ninth. And before I get your thoughts, Danny, I will toot my own horn and say I got all the finals picks right. I picked Ottawa beating U of T in the final, but I did not pick Mac winning. So Mac using it as extra motivation as per usual.
I just feel like no matter what, we'll always underestimate Mac. I think that's just kind of the story of this podcast. If nothing else, this is what I've learned.
Death, taxes, and doubting McMaster. Someone please clip that. I'm just trying to give you sound bites out here. Okay, in open, it's not, I call it pool play. It's really just a large bracket. So we have Algonquin. I'm going to give a shout out. Algonquin squeaks out a 13-12 win over McGill B. And then we go into this round of 16. So some notable results from there. Laurier wins the Waterloo Showdown. They beat Waterloo. Said it could happen. It does happen. Mac A squeaks by Toronto 9-8. So Kevin Tong's return does not help U of T take down McMaster. McMaster wins. So that maybe Mac might have a chance. Or Toronto might have a chance to upset Mac, but that's not the case. All top four seeds prevail in quarters. So McGill, Ottawa, Queens, and Guelph kind of all take care of business here. And then there's some fun backdoor action, backdoor bracket. So Mac, Waterloo, Carleton, and Laurier all advance through the back door. Some pretty tight games here. Like Mac beats TMU only by 2, Carleton beats U of T by 3, and Laurier squeaks by Brock by 1. So close games, to say the least. And now we go into this like championship semifinals bracket. So Ottawa, congratulations, you qualify. You beat McGill in the semis, 13-11. Queens defeats Guelph 15-11. And Queens are your repeat Easterns champions. They did this last year. They went undefeated. They won Steeltown Easterns, and then they fell apart. I'm going to say it. They fell apart at D1. Will it happen again, Danny?
Well, I think it's impressive that they've won twice. And this last weekend, they won without their head coach, Pete, because he was in the West at tryouts. So I feel like this team's resilient. They've got a strong coaching staff without Pete even there, but I think that my stock is very high on this Queens team. I think they're going to be a medalist for sure, and I think that that's even too safe to say.
No, they're going to be in the finals. If they're not in the finals, something's wrong. They just can't have a repeat of what happened last year. Yeah, they're the number one team in our power rankings this week for a reason. So, anyways, the third place bracket, McMaster. I got to give you some love because you win 3 straight games. So they beat Waterloo to start. Then they take down Guelph, who were the finalists at Steeltown. And they beat Carleton 13-10. So they earned themselves a bid. They get all the way there. The other side of the bracket was Carleton beating Laurier by 1-9-8. Carleton then kind of walking the tightrope here because they also beat McGill by 1. And I guess they run out of gas. It was in a Mac and the game to go there. But lots of close games. I wish I was there.
Yeah, it kind of seems like I remember in years past there being a lot more bigger blowouts, but so many of these games this season have been won by 1, and so many times the winner has been changing hands. I feel like in Club Ultimate, you just get so used to the same teams winning against other teams. But in college, man, it's exciting.
You never know what could happen. I mean, Guelph was silver medalist last week, and they fall all the way to 6th place. So now they're going to have to fight through the Friday qualifier. They thought maybe they would get themselves a bid, but fortunately that's not the case. Waterloo A takes 7th. They get the revenge battle over Laurier. U of T gets 9th. And Queens B, congratulations. You are the best B team in this country in the open division.
That is going for nationals.
Oh, true. That's a good point.
You don't know. You don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so, I mean, we kind of covered a lot of content there. I think that once we get into CUUC's previews and everything like that, these episodes are going to start getting a little longer again, especially once we have the pools for Club Nats as well. But I just want to say to all of you that are out there playing right now, eat, drink, water, please. I had to finish that sentence. And roll, take care of your bodies. It's a lot of ultimate in a short period of time. And make sure that you're sleeping, because I know when you're a student athlete, it's really, really hard to prioritize your health because you have so many other competing things that you want to be doing. You want to go to parties, hanging out with your friends, playing Frisbee and all that stuff, but take care of your health. The season is not that long, and you want to make sure that you are at your absolute best when it comes time to be at the show.
Spoken like a true coach right there. Thank you for tuning in. Apologies for the mic quality and the vagabondness of this recording. But we got to record anyways. Danie and I have to see each other at least once a week, I think. So we have to make it happen. Thank you again. Be a subscriber. I do not think there's a subscriber only this week. I think we are going to go no subscriber only this week, but subscribers, do not fear. We will chat about something next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.